All right, everybody, welcome back to this sort of, I guess, part two, if you would, of the 2021 projected standings in the new realigned divisions. This will be my final video tonight. I'll see if, depending on how many views and likes the Northern Division video, and then this one gets, I'll think about doing a Eastern and Metro Division 1. Okay, so here we go, Western Division. In my opinion, this is going to be the most stacked in terms of what we saw last year in the regular season and in the playoffs. I just think they're just going to be it's going to be fun to see. But I'm limiting that to, as you can see, the top three teams. Similar to the Northern Division, there wasn't as sharp of a cutoff, but for this one, there's a pretty sharp cutoff in this division in terms of who's going to put up the most points. That being said, start with number one here. We got Colorado Avalanche. Goodness, they look scary. I mean, I'm not going to say they deserve to beat the Stars, but boy, if there was a team that did, it was them, obviously Tampa Bay, but for the Western Conference team, it took us to overtime, Game 7. They played their butts off, and they showed just how dangerous they can be. With their third-string goaltender, and I mean, it's just it was incredible, and to go unnoticed. Hats off to you, Avalanche fan. I'm scared of you guys next season. You guys are dangerous. Last year, 42, 20, and 8 goals for average, a outstanding 3.37, with a very nice goals against average of 2.71. So that's something you like to see. Leading scorer Nathan McKinnon with 93 points. I'm projecting 90 points for the final standings. 93 points for McKinnon. 90 points in the projected final standings. I just think they're somewhere along the lines of 45 wins out of the 56-game season. I see it happening mainly against these teams down here. Once you get past the 3 cutoff, I just think they have so many weapons. And next to follow, Vegas Golden Knights finished 39, 24, and 8, 3.15 goals for average, 2.94 goals against average. Leading scorer was Max Pacioretty with 66 points. Last year they lost to the Stars in 5 in the Western Conference Finals. They didn't look like Vegas. They didn't look like the Vegas we'd seen the past couple years. They just looked dead inside, to be honest with you. Really big lack of scoring for them, and it was showing. Goaltending, I thought, in my opinion, was fantastic. I thought Leonard did a great job. But they just couldn't put the puck in the net for the majority of the series, and it killed them. And I'm not saying the Stars fared much better, but they did better enough to squeak by them in 5 games. These were the big bad nights, yet, well, you know how that goes. Anyways, with that being said, this year with the signing of Alex Pietrangelo, God, say that 3 times fast. With the signing of him, it's just going to buff up their defense with Shea Theodore. Again, scoring is going to be the issue. Goaltending, got a great tandem with Leonard and Fleury, assuming that Fleury doesn't get booted based on the weird agent picture tweet thing that happened earlier in the offseason. I think it'll be fine. Vegas, you're looking pretty good. I'm going to put you at second, finishing with 82 points. Number 3 spot, hometown team, Stars. Last year, obviously, went to the Stanley Cup Finals. It's hard to talk about, but the run just kind of burnt out. You could feel the spark being pulled from that team after Game 1, to be honest. It was a miracle that they had won Game 5 in overtime with Corey Perry. You would think that spark would be plugged after battling out with Colorado in a 7-game series. But it was after the 5-game series with Vegas. So I guess, Vegas, if you did do something right, you pulled that spark out of Dallas. And they just looked empty. But in the upcoming year, signing Gurianov, Hintz, Fox, Hudobin back, truth be told, I don't think Hudobin's going to have as good of a season this year. He's getting up there in age, and I just don't see that happening. But, you know, a pretty good fair amount of depth. Unfortunately, Tyler Seguin is going to be out with an injury, as well as Bishop. Looks like to be for a little while. And so that's going to take a hit. Not that Seguin was doing too much in the regular season last year, although he was the leading point scorer with 50. Dallas last year finished 37, 24, and 8 with a 2.58 goals for average. And the reason why, obviously I'm spending more time on Dallas because I watch them a lot, but because this number is reflective of the numbers you're seeing. If you're looking at the bottom of the standings and you're looking at the stats on NHL.com, you're going to see 2.58 down with Ottawa, down with the Red Wings, down with the Sharks and Kings. That is abysmal. It's terrible, but at the same time, you're only giving up 2.52 goals a game. That's amazing. And so, if it works, it works. And, you know, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So, obviously, you're going to look for more scoring. I've been saying it for God knows how long, and it's just going to keep becoming the trend. I'm projecting them with 75 points. I think they're going to get beat up by Vegas and Colorado this season, to be honest. But I don't see the rest of the teams in this division doing too well. And that's where that cutoff is going to come in, top 3 spot. Because at number 4, we have the Coyotes, who, you know, they got Phil Kessel. They got Taylor Hall. They had people like Connor Garland and Nick Schmaltz pop out and, you know, do pretty good for them. Great goaltending. And Darcy Kemper, I love him. I think he's very underrated in this league. With that being said, that's why I have them finishing 4th. It's just because between the Stars, you know, defensively just amazing. And then, you know, I've already talked about Vegas and Colorado. I just don't see them possibly getting past them in the top 3. So that's why I have them at 4 with 67 points. And there's that cutoff because I just think these 3 teams are going to terrorize the rest of the division. At the 5 spot, I have Anaheim. You know, they have Getzlaf, they have Henrik, they have Raquel, they have Sonny. They have or had Sonny Milano. I think he's a great player. He's got speed, he's got handles. You know, I don't think he got a fair shot in Columbus. I thought they kind of dumped him a little too easy. He was one of my favorite players out of that division with Columbus. Very underrated in my mind. I think, you know, he could do pretty well. So with that being said, that, you know, 2.56 goals for average, that would be okay if their goals allowed average wasn't 3.17. See, that's where it doesn't work. It's all right if you don't score that many goals. You just can't let up that many, and that was not the case for Anaheim last season. But with that being said, you know, got good prospects up and coming. You know, John Gibson's a great goaltender. I don't think his goals allowed average reflects how well he actually is, or how good of a player he actually is. I think he's better than that in terms of paper stats. And so that's why I have them at 5, finishing with 67 points. Right behind them, I have Minnesota. They're getting old. Zuccarello's getting old. Suter's getting old. And they're lacking a lot. Goaltending, defense, offense. You know, you name it. They're lacking a bit there. This season, and I'm talking about the past, you know, couple years, but this season they did hold 3.16 goals for average, but most of that rode on the shoulders of their top 5, and so once those guys, you know, get swept out of the organization, you're kind of left with dust, and that's where I think Minnesota is going to be left with this season. Kevin Fiala was their top scorer with 54 points. I have them finishing at 60 points this year. At the number 7 spot, San Jose. These 2 teams flip-flop. I wouldn't be surprised. Not much has changed this offseason for San Jose. I guess losing Jim Thornton, you could say. Last year they were 29, 36, and 5 with a 2.57 goals average. And the worst out of this division, potential division, 3.21 goals allowed average. So again, there's that, it's okay if you don't score goals, just don't let up that many, and they let up a lot. Timo Meier led them in scoring with 49 points. I'm projecting them at 55. Evander Kane, for me, shockingly enough, I didn't pay enough attention to him. I kind of just associated him with the goon that every team has. I didn't notice he is right behind that. He's putting up 20 plus goals, 20 plus assists. He's a good scorer, and I think that goes unnoticed. I think people look at him, people look at him, people look at players like Ryan Reeves. For the Stars, Jamie Alexiak, Avalanche. I don't know. I'd say Gabriel Landeskog. To be honest, I don't know who. You got to go on each team. Evander Kane's the goon, but he can score. That's what Ryan Reeves lacks for the Knights. He's not a good scorer. He's a great enforcer, not a great scorer. Evander Kane, when I was looking at the stats, it shocked me greatly to see Kane with that good of a stat line. And so with that being said, lastly at the 8th spot, LA Kings. Last year 29, 35, and 6 with a 2.53 goals for average, and not terrible 3.99 or 2.99 goals against average. Anze Kopitar led them with .62. I'm projecting them to end at 50 this season, just because. Look, Drew Doughty, kind of keep coming back to it. Old, Iafallo's good, Toffoli's good. Don't get me wrong, but and they drafted Quentin Byfield. And based off my, I've been doing the NHL 21 franchise mode, and I've picked him, and based on that, he's shown great promise. He looks like a pretty good player. It'll be interesting to see how many years it takes him to get truly ready in the league. But I just don't see the Kings putting that much of a fight this year. Jonathan Quick, he's not got many days left. Jack Campbell last year didn't have a great season, but the year before that had an amazing season. It's weird. He could come out, he could surprise everyone. The Stars used to have him, actually, and let him go. But it'll be interesting to see. Thank you guys for watching.